Hello and welcome to How to Manifest. How to manifest the perfect, ultimate, greatest possible future. And with zero effort, I repeat, zero effort, create the future you've always dreamed of. Not really zero effort. There is some effort. There is some effort required, but very, very little, less than you would think. So, how do you manifest? What is manifesting? How do I create this ultimate future? This doesn't make any sense. It seems ridiculous. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. I'm going to go on a few tangents. They're going to seem like tangents, but it's all going to come together. And of course, this is your future. This is the ultimate future I'm offering you here. So please bear with me for a second. First thing I need to talk about is free will. What is free will? If I ask a person, off the street, do you think free will exists? I'm basically going to get two answers. One answer is yes, it totally exists. And the other answer is no, it definitely doesn't exist. So, they say yes, it's like, yes. Yes, for whatever reason, the culture I grew up in and, all the contributing factors, everything around me, I can just grow up tomorrow and, no longer like pizza. And I can, I can totally just derail my life at any moment. I can, I can be at the edge of a cliff and just choose to jump off. Really? No, clearly there is something more. There is something binding your decisions. You can't just do anything at any given exact moment. But on the other side of that coin, you have people who don't believe in free will, and they'll just say like, no, I have no choice but to goon for 16 hours a day, or I have no choice but to be addicted to nicotine, methamphetamines, heroin, opiate, whatever. I have no choice to do those things. I have no choice but to destroy my life by not. Obviously that isn't true either. What is the truth? The truth is there is a perfect middle position. And the middle position is that we have the whole dichotomy wrong. We have the dichotomy of either there's no free will and, the material world around you, it's just constantly, your brain is just the material and it just passes through and, the material world just influence your brain and then your brain, does something in the material world and there's nothing in the middle there. There's no free will. Or you have the option of like, my brain is totally divorced of the material world and it somehow makes a decision that impacts the material world. And obviously, clearly some stuff goes into your brain to influence it. So that doesn't make sense either. The truth is this whole dichotomy between the brain, mind world, the world of what you imagine, and the world outside of you, the world around you, those are two completely separate things. That's a false dichotomy. They're really, in reality is a lot more complicated than we give it credit for. And what's happening in the mental is influencing itself back and bleeding into the real world. And what's happening in the real world is happening in the mental because they're the same world. And this idea that your mind is just these images that kind of just happen randomly and the real world is made up of atoms. That's just the wrong way. That's just the bad day. That's just an incorrect way of thinking about this. Now, do I have evidence for this? Yes, plenty. For one, there's no way to explain consciousness unless you realize the universe must be made out of consciousness. There is no explanation. If you think of an explanation, then you don't understand the basics of consciousness. You don't understand that there's no way to explain why my green is different than your green unless you come to this conclusion that there must be a difference. There must be a conscious, material mental world that exists in the real world that's interacting with my mental world in my own mind. And, vice versa, that it's not really about this outside atom world is kind of what's happening in my mind too. This is what we think of, as being the material atom world. That is just what my mind is too. And so, by this way of thinking about it, what free will is really is free will. If you had, if there was 100% free will, if you want to achieve that, what you really need to do is you just need to siphon off what's happening in your own mind from its connections to the outside world and let it sort of like permeate in itself. It's kind of like if you have like a, let's say I have these ants and I put them in like not aquarium, put them in this ant farm and I, vacuum seal it so nothing happening outside the ant farm influences the ants. And then I let the ants go and then, they can go and, let's say I breed them in this ant farm. And then I let the ants go and they go and populate in the real world outside of the ant farm. That's what you need to do with your mind if you want to have full free will. And that's how we're going to be manifesting. So now that I've talked about free will, I'm going another little tangent. And it's going to be something ridiculous, but it's going to be about multiverse theory. So what is multiverse theory? It's a theory according to to science. But they haven't proven it yet, but it's real because basically there's no explanation for random events unless in the quantum realm. I don't really know much about quantum mechanics. Okay, I actually know a lot. I've watched a lot of YouTube videos. That was kind of me underselling myself. I do understand it quite well anyways. In the quantum realm, random events happen. And if you think about it for just a second, random things can't happen. Einstein said random things. God doesn't play dice to the universe. There's no way for random events to happen. There's no really good explanation for why they occur. And so what should really be happening is that, why would the universe arbitrarily, we know the universe isn't actually just made of atoms, it isn't actually just made of material things that just act in, weird ways, spewing off of each other, and going in random directions. That's not really what the universe is. The universe is, again, this fluid sort of mental mixture in the same way your mind is, And if that's the case, why would, these sort of sporadic random events be happening? Well, what's really happening is the universe, at seemingly random, is moving through the multiverses that can be happening, where one, fissure, for whatever reason, the neurons in your brain fire and you pick up, the box of Cheerios, and the other one you pick up the box of Fruity Pebbles, What really happens there is the universe kind of at random is navigating the multiverse tree. That's what we call the multiverse tree of basically the different universes. And it just kind of, we can't, it seems random that it decides to navigate this way. But I'm going to be talking about how you can control that navigation. And it just sort of moves and it combines and it swerves into that universe. And we can't really control, we do control it actually. But we don't really see it in that exact moment. It seems like it's a random event that's occurring. But in reality, it is this controlled process that we're guiding through and we're going through the universe and we're ending up where we end up. So now I need to go on one final short little tangent, and this final tangent is going to be on time, okay? So time, we think about it, in this very objective sense, 1 millisecond, this thing is happening, next millisecond, this is happening, next millisecond, this is happening, next millisecond, blah, 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 blah. But in reality, our experience of time is subjective. And again, if our universe is not this material thing, then this understanding of time is this, this timeline that only goes forward and never has deviations and never stops or speeds down and never goes backwards. That doesn't really work. And instead what we have is just this subjective experience of it. What is your evidence of time? How, if you needed to prove to an alien race and they came up to you and they said, their time isn't real. The time is just you can go, why can't you go backwards or forwards in time? What are you going to tell them? You're going to say, well, I've never seen time go backwards. Oh, that doesn't really prove it though. Again, so time is really subjective, is really just a subjective experience. And if we apply that now, we know, okay, we don't really have a reason to say that time can't go backwards. Maybe, we've just never seen it happen and we can't understand it. Believe me, if you become super intelligent, once you're super intelligent, you kind of understand time in these sorts of ways where it can start to go backwards and it can start to go forwards. Okay, so I'm just massaging you into these different opinions. So we seemingly can't go forward in time. We seemingly can't go backwards in time, but we don't really have a good reason to believe that. And all of our evidence of time is this, it's just this experience we see of it. And we kind of, science kind of ties into time with space-time. And space-time is kind of, the three spatial dimensions we see and the time dimension. But for whatever reason, we can move through the space dimensions any way we want, but we can't move backwards in time. And, if you watch my other videos, you kind of know it may even be possible that there's other dimensions we don't even see. Why can't there be other time dimensions we don't see? And obviously, if there's other time dimensions we don't see, well, if you're always just moving forward through these other time dimensions, then you're just going straight, correct? And also, there's this thing called time dilation. I don't really understand it that well. I've just seen YouTube videos about it. But basically, that kind of means sometimes time happens subjectively, based on where you are, you experience time differently. And that kind of ties in, time is a subjective experience, which doesn't make sense if we're thinking about that this wholly, material, objective thing that can never deviate, that never, this is scientifically proven stuff, I'm basically saying. So, anyways, what are we left with then? Well, time, essentially, is just a subjective illusion that we're putting onto our own brains in order to make sense of the universe. But it's not actually the case that, if event A happens at 9 p.m. and event B happens at 10 p.m., that, event B was after event A, or that event A couldn't have happened before or could not have happened after event B, or that the two don't happen at the exact same time, or that we can't, go from event B to event A. These sorts of things are not objectively true. They're only true within the confines of your own experience, which again, if you're confined to 3 spatial dimensions and 1, time dimension, as my other videos prove, obviously those aren't the only dimensions. If you're confined to that might be the case. But that's just in terms of what you can experience. It's not actually in terms of what's true. So if you think about it this way, time is an illusion. What does that mean? That means that if we tie it back to the multiverse theory, okay, that means, because a multiverse, if a multiverse diverges, that simply means that at this event in time A, that time B happened. And, the multiverse was kind of saying that, like, okay, all of these universes, the universe where you pick up the Cheerios and the universe where you pick up the Honey Nut Cheerios, those two universes exist at the exact same, they both exist at the same time. But if time is a subjective thing where, there isn't really a time, it's just more how you experience it, how you're moving through it, then what you're basically left with is, okay, so the universe where I get my Cheerios and the universe where I haven't made my decision to get my Cheerios, those both also exist at the exact same time. So seemingly the timeline where this event that happens in the future and where I am right now, these two are also existing concurrently. This exists while you're here. And again, now we tie it further back, free will consciousness, our understanding of the universe. What does this tell us? This tells us that because the universe around us isn't really this just, discrete objects interacting. It's more this superfluous mental construct that we exist within our own mind. Therefore, there isn't really this universe-sized gap between, where I am right now and where I could be in the future and every other possible future behind me and every possible past in front of me. There isn't really this universal gap between them. In reality, they're all occurring simultaneously, and it's just more of these mental confines that are constructing us within one at a particular moment. Now, I'm not saying necessarily that this manifesting is going to allow you to time travel yet. Yeah, you're going to need more groundwork to be able to move from one object to another. I can do okay. I don't want to blow your mind yet. I'm not going to talk about that yet. Anyways, so what does this have to do with manifesting? So what I basically told you now is based on this, this realizing time is subjective and that the multiverses are, the multiverse theory. That basically means that these future quote unquote future universes, they're really existing at the same time as the present right now. And so is the past. So if you made a mistake, that's a little more confusing. Basically, the past versions of yourself are also existing behind you, and also every possible past way you could have gone to your present, and every single past way you could have gone to any other possible present. These are all sort of existing in the same way. But clearly, there must be some sort of connection between if it's a possible future that could occur from where you are right now. There must be closer than, if it's something that happened, if you were born as a fish, universes, like that universe is like all the way, is crazily far away compared to the universe where, you pick up the Cheerios box where it's just right there next to the one. There is some distance in this, sort of superfluous, convoluted way. There is this distance, and these two are closer than this one. So, what am I saying now? Now we need to think about this distance. What really ties this distance? This distance isn't an objective thing, though. This distance isn't like exactly 4,000 atoms, hydrogen atoms wide. It's not like this exact perfect thing that cannot be manipulated, that cannot be controlled, that cannot be understood, comprehended, whatever. Or that cannot be manipulated. It's not this objective solid thing that can't be massaged, that can't be manipulated. And so what basically you're going to be doing is when you manifest, your strategies are all about going to be closing distances between the futures that you desire. So if you have this universe that seems like it's far away, obviously it's not as far away as, the universe where you were born as a Martian, you're invading Jupiter with 4,000 other, whatever. That's a totally far away universe. But you have this universe that's like seemingly possible. You're basically going to be massaging it so it's even closer. And so then when, as time progresses in your subjective sense, as time progresses and it moves through, you're going to collide with that universe that you want. It's going to be more and more possible. It's like a magnetism. Essentially, you're going to lower the distance and then they connect. They connect somehow. So, did that make sense? I don't care if it made sense, because if it didn't make sense, you can just rewatch the video and understand what I said. Okay, so now we're, after that small little detour, we're actually to the point where I can explain how we understand, or how we actually go about manifesting. So, there's a lot of techniques. Some techniques are way more difficult than others. I'm going to start with just a basic beginner technique. Again, foundations on this channel. I don't have very many, this is my videos right now. There's not a huge back catalog. I want to give you the basics first. So, how do we massage our way into bringing these universes together? So, what's really going to be weird is you don't know, the universe that you want, that you're going to eventually be colliding with yourself. It's really you're not envisioning the exact future you want. You're not envisioning every single exact way. Obviously, if you think about it, if I'm envisioning this future, it's not just like, okay, I want to be the future where I'm a billionaire. Okay, well, in this future where I'm a billionaire, and let's just say my business makes $1 billion next year, there might be things that happen in this future universe that you have no understanding of bearing of. So, like for instance, let's say there's a guy named Doug, and he is deciding whether or not to jump off a bridge. This guy named Doug, you don't even know who Doug is. And so whether or not he jumps off the bridge, those are two universes, right? That exist within your universe of being a billionaire. And so what you're really going to do is you're not necessarily going to be picking, I want Doug to die, because clearly you don't even know who Doug is. Instead, what you're going to be doing is you're going to grab one of these universes that you need to bring it to, and you're not going to know, and while you grab this universe and bring it closer, you're bringing along a myriad of other universes. And eventually, one of them is going to hopefully collide. The most likely one. And whether or not Doug lives or dies, that's not really your concern when you do that. Because obviously you don't know anything about it. So if something bad happens to someone, you don't really know who it is. This is just a moral lesson. If you have no understanding or bearing on someone else, then you're not responsible in any way for what you do to them. So, now, we are at the point where I can actually give you the advice. So, the way you're going to envision, you're going to start out where you are, and you're going to envision the futures closest to where you are currently. Correct? Then, you're going to start extrapolating very, very slightly from these futures into the direction you want. So, for instance, let's say my goal is to make $1 billion. I'm going to choose a universe that is, obviously closer to that universe than where I am right now. But not like all the way far away, because I don't even know what the universe, because, maybe the universe where I'm a billionaire is over here, it's over here, it's over here, it's over here. We don't, ignoring the spatial sort of allegory here and how it doesn't really fit well. I don't know if that universe, I don't really know what the direction the universe is. So I'm instead going to just pick a universe that, seems plausibly in that direction. So, if I have a universe where I want to make $1 billion, that's what I'm looking for. I'm going to look for a universe where I make $10,000. And so what basically you're going to think is or you can even start, you can small. You can start with $1,000. You can start with $100, whatever. And you're just going to think of, okay, how could I right now get to a future where I have $10,000? You're think, okay, I guess, for the next year, I go to my job and I work overtime. And maybe I take like a part-time job over the fall or whatever. Basically just like have a plausible scenario. And, I'll make some sacrifices and, by spending, you just kind of, basically you're going to start out okay, tomorrow, I ask my boss if I can have more hours, and then I guess he says yes, and then, okay, I start doing more hours, and then, I go and sell all my, Pokemon cards, and I make some money doing that, and then I stop buying this subscription, so, blah, blah, blah. You're going to start with where you are, and you're just going to think of, okay, I do this, and then 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 I get to the $10,000 universe. Okay. Perfect. Now what you've done is you've connected these two universes, and it almost seems there's a kind of a universal cosmic pull between them, because you've essentially massaged through your mind, because if you think about it, again, what the universe is made out of, and how the universe makes its decisions is the same sort of thing as what's happening in your mind. And so when your mind is choosing a timeline, it's the same as the universe choosing the timeline. And so by moving down that timeline in your mind, you've moved down that timeline in the universe, correct? Does this make sense? Okay. So, you've gone to this universe, you've envisioned this universe, and you massaged it, you made it more likely in the real universe to happen where you get $10,000. Now, what do I do from here? Now, here's kind of like, let's say, for instance, instead of doing this, I just told you, go and create the universe where you have $1 billion. You're gonna have to, you're gonna have, you're not gonna know what to work from, right? It's gonna be like, I guess I do this and this and this, and then I guess I go to buy lottery tickets, and then I get those lottery tickets, and then I, invest them in Amazon, and then I, whatever. You're not gonna know how to get there. But when I say, okay, you created this universe where you've gotten from, the money you have today to $10,000 more dollars. Okay. Now let's say a universe where you have $15,000 more dollars. Okay. Now you can either do it two ways. One way is you just start at, okay, I got to the $10,000, let's get to $15,000 more dollars. Or you can start, if you want, that's the weaker way. It's easier on your mind. It's less effort, but it's not going to give you as strong of results immediately. So instead, let's think of it, okay, I'm going to get $15,000. And so it's like, okay, well, I guess I'll start doing like the side gig alongside my job, and I'll be working like 60-hour weeks, and I'll do this and this and this and this and this, and then I'll get there, and I'll the same exact point where I would have gotten $10,000, I'll have $15,000. I open the side gig, and I start, I sell all this, and then I I stop going to these things. You just make more and more sacrifices, and you get to $15,000. Okay, you're $15,000 now. Now you reset and you go to $25,000, and you reset and you go. And you should be pretty thorough with this. Again, remember, it's not like, oh, I do this and this, and you write down like a bullet point list of the 10 things you did. You think of, I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this, because you're massaging the universe the same way. You're making the same decision the universe will be ultimately making when it pushes you down a timeline, correct? So, you trepidatiously keep venturing into these universes, and again, by doing this and by exponentially growing, 25,000, 40,000, 70,000, 100,000, 150,000, 220,000. Again, this is different than just saying, okay, the $1 billion scenario, because you're kind of just ping-ponging around and you don't even know if you're connecting with the real universe. But clearly, the 10,000 universe scenario was plausible. And then if the 10,000 scenario is plausible, then the 15,000 scenario was plausible, I guess, building on top of that. And if the 15,000 is plausible, then the 25,000 is plausible. And they're kind of bringing each other, you're kind of venturing in the same direction, and you're pulling all of these universes that are where you really want them, you're pulling them into your closer vicinity. You're closing the distance by doing this. So, now you've ventured into these universes, and you're pulling it, and you kind of find it. Now, this is great. This is basically all you need to do. Not all you need to do, but this is all you need to repeat doing. So, what the main issue is eventually in one of your scenarios, when you go from 40,000 to 60,000 or something, in one of these scenarios, you're going to hit a hitch where you're essentially going off in some tangent, like your side gig, I guess, becomes your main business, and that's how you're making all this money. And then your side business works with this person, you're kind of going to go off some plausible tangent, which is still bringing closer these universes. Those universes maybe where this tangent even exist, but they're very, very far away. So instead, you're going to kind of just reset this entire process, and you're going to kind of go about it completely differently. Not obviously you want to ultimately get that goal of making money, but you're going to kind of be venturing it different ways. And so by exploring these different imaginative scenarios, you do 6 of them, you've brought, if you think of these 6 scenarios out there, as long as one of them is close enough, you latch onto it and you bring it closer. Now, of course, what you're imagining in your dream scenario, if this was the realistic scenario, if you could just sit here and do 50 scenarios in your head and one of them was realistic, that would be ridiculous. That would be, because you could just do that 50, you just do that scenario and you make the $1 billion. No, what you're really doing is you're massaging all of these different plausible tangential scenarios, and perhaps one that's very convincing, or perhaps one that's close to there. You're massaging these in, and you're creating a center of gravity. You're essentially creating a decline for the universe to slot into and move again. Now, with all of this said, what do I do now? Let's say I envision all these things and I envision 1,000 of them. How from here do I get what I want? And here's the perfect thing. It's not like I go and say, okay, my best scenario, I'm going to go and do that. You're just going to go about your life normally. And you won't even have to, again, this is where the free will thing is kind of crazy. Because, again, what's happening in the world around you is influencing how you're acting. And so, if in all these scenarios you somehow willed all this, if you somehow had all this willpower in all these scenarios, The universe, by pushing you down that timeline, is going to give you the willpower to act out what you're going to do. So you don't even need to you can just think about it in terms of just sitting back and letting the universe make the decisions for you. Let it vicariously move through you and let you influence the universe through that. So don't worry like, I don't really have that strong of a work ethic. If you envision yourself having a strong work ethic, the universe is going to slot you into that stronger work ethic. Is this making sense? This is how you manifest the perfect dream scenario. This is how you bring it about. And the beautiful part is, it's the reason it takes no effort is because you're slotting in the universe to make it take no effort. The universe is doing the work for you by influencing your mind to do it. Does this make sense? This is the beauty of manifesting. And this is how you become super intelligent. Hope you've enjoyed. No, I actually don't care. I keep saying I hope you enjoyed. I do not care if you enjoyed. This video is not about enjoyment, it is about educational purposes. You should be hoping that I enjoyed telling you this information. I'm really, really upset by how entitled a lot of my viewers are. It's really kind of grating how often people sort of, they feel like I'm literally giving them, and I've used this phrase before, but it's true. I'm giving them the world at their fingertips. I'm giving them unfathomable. I mean, this video is literally how to unlock the perfect future for yourself, your exact dream scenario where you're a rock star with, a billion fans and, $100 trillion. I've literally just told you how to get it with zero effort, not zero effort, close to zero effort. I've told you how to do that. And how many people are going to watch the video? Is it going to get millions of views? Is it going to get billions of views? No, it's not going to get any. It's going to have, 20 views, and there's going to be, 5 likes at most. 5 likes at most. And there's going to be all these comments, like, no, there's not even going to be many comments. That's what's upsetting. I don't give a shit if you enjoyed, because I know you did. That's the fucking difference.